Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Katie Parker Jewellery. I'm Katie and today we're going to be making one of these pendants. So we're going to be making the actual pendant shape itself up to here, and then we're also going to be making this tassel at the end too. So this is like an addition. You could just have this on its own, kind of like this, as just a pendant also. And also I'm going to be using these beautiful ceramic donut beads. These are 20 millimeters across in diameter. You could substitute those for larger gemstone ones. You could do the exact same design, even up to quite large gemstone donut beads, and then you're still going to have this ability to attach that that tassel at the other side too. So I'm going to be using some little hematite Buddha head beads, which are double-sided, and we're also going to be using our wire. So our wire will be 0.9 millimeter for our base wire and a 0.4 millimeter to wrap with. We're going to be using some S-long cord. Now this S-long cord is a 0.9 millimeter S-long cord. You can use finer, it's entirely up to you what you use for your tassel. You don't even have to use cord, you could use things like ribbon, sari ribbon, lots and lots of different materials, but anything that's going to give you that nice kind of tassel effect, even chains if you want it to. Okay, I'm going to be using a little bit of hypo-cement. That's just to kind of seal that knot inside my my tassel, just to make sure for my own peace of mind that it's nice and secure. Tools are going to be very basic. The majority of it is just going to be sort of using our hands, but we will use some pliers, so some chain nose pliers and some snips like so, some flush cutters. And the other thing that I will be using for making the tassel is going to be my knotty do-it-all board. So, there'll be lots of different ways, and I'll go through that of how you can make tassels as well. So I'm just going to move all these out of the way and we will start to make our pendant. So to begin our pendant, what we need to do is cut some of our wire. So this is my 0.9 millimeter wire. And what I've done is I've cut two lengths. They're about 10 centimeters each. They're actually much longer than we'll actually need, but you kind of need a little bit of wire to be able to hold it, because it's only a very small little part that we're going to be putting through the middle of this. Now obviously if you're using a bigger gemstone, sort of just lengthen this a little bit, because your width that you've got to get around at both sides is a little bit longer. So just work it out for whatever gemstone you're using. And then I've got one piece that's a little bit longer. Now this is going to form kind of this bail section and where the bead's going to go, so that's why it needs to be a bit longer. So this is probably about 15 centimeters long. Okay, so we're going to start with that middle wire, this one, which is going to be the middle wire, which is a longer one. And I've got about 50 centimeters of our 0.4 millimeter wire, and I've just kind of folded it in half, and then I'm just going to let those cross over and form a loop. Now don't pull it really tight, not yet. What we're going to do is going to pop our wire through that loop and give it a little tighten. Okay, so then we're going to pop each of our shorter wires at either side of here. Now I do have a full demonstration of this, which is a little bit more slowed down, available, and I will pop the link just above there for you. So we want to leave a little bit of our wire at each side, so a couple of centimeters at each side, and we're going to be wrapping this central part here. So holding all three wires together. Remember, our loop is in the middle here and our wires are coming from underneath now because we popped the other wires on top. And we're going to come over two wires from the furthest side away from you twice. So over and around and back out to this side. Now that wire is always going to stay at that side, and this wire is always going to stay at this side. So as soon as you've wrapped over two from this side, it's going to come back over to this side, and just push them together. Now if I bring that up to the camera, you should be able to see I've got two wraps on one side and two wraps on the other side, and each of those is going over two wires. So I'm going to come over, wrap over two at this side, so two wraps over two wires, and this wire goes back out in that direction, and the same again, over two wires from this side and push down, and every time you've kind of got two in, just give them a nice little squish together. So you're just going to continue that until you've got the right length to go kind of up both sides of this. So it's going to be about 2.5 centimetres because we've got that little bend from the inside as well. So I'm just going to continue doing this, and I will meet you back here when we've got that kind of 2.5 centimetres, or work it out for whatever gemstone you're using, or these are ceramics, they're not actually gemstones, but whatever stone you're using that you need. So think about the depth of each side, so that the kind of radius of each side, and then incorporate just that little bit of the width that we've got going there. So I'm going to go for about 2.5 centimetres, and then we'll see what that's like. So I will see you back in a second when I've got to that point. So once you've got to the stage where you think you've got enough to just go through and up each side, you can finish off your wire. Now I've finished one side, and what we do to finish off the wire is look at this central piece here. So whichever side you're working from, just go up in between, and we're just going to do a couple of wraps with both wires. So I've already done it on the central wire from the one from this side, and you're just going to do a couple of wraps. Now make sure they're quite tight and neat, like so. And if you find it difficult just because you're trying to wrap on a middle wire, just use your pliers and then just snip that off, and do all your snips at the same side that are going to sit on the kind of inside of your pendant, and nip that in. So now I know this is going to be the inside of my pendant, so I'm going to pop this through. So I've popped everything through. I'm going to find that central point there, and then I can start bending this wire up towards the top. So bending, so we've got a nice bend all the way around there. Okay, so, and just make sure it's nice and centralised for yourself. So I've got that nice and centralised in there now. Now just to get these out of the way for the minute, all the ones on the outside, so this one, just bend them all out of the way just for a moment or so. Okay, so they're all well out of the way. That's the direction they're going to go in anyway, so that's absolutely fine. And what I want to do is I just want to press these other ones in a little bit, so just using my fingers just to kind of bring them together like so. So they've actually crossed over that little bit now. Now I'm going to go in with my pliers and straighten out one of these. So I'm going to straighten out the longest one, so whichever side on yours is longer, and just making that kind of kink so that it's straight. And then this one is the one that's going to wrap around this one. So this one's going to come straight out. This is going to create the rest of your bail. And this is the middle wire from the opposite side, and we're just going to wrap this around. And it's literally not much because we don't want to make a big kind of part of the pendant out of this. We're just going to go like a full circle wrap all the way around, and squeezing that nice and tight. I'm just using my pliers just to bring that in, and then that one can be just snipped off like so. So now we've got our place that we can put our next bead on and finish our bail, and now we just need to sort out all these little extra wires that we've got here. So to do that, and to make this kind of detail on the top, I kind of really want to pull them down towards the pendant, so they've got a really nice angle on here and here and here. And then I want to start snipping these off, and I want to snip them off quite short, so they're all about 1 centimetre long. So make sure they're all around about the same length. So like so. And just take a look at them sort of evenly each side. Now this side looks a bit longer. Now I've brought it out a little bit, so I'm just going to snip a little bit more off there. That's fine. And then we're going to go in with our round nose pliers. Sorry, I forgot to mention them right at the beginning, but they should be in your basic toolkit anyway. In fact, I must do a video about a basic toolkit. That's a good idea. So we're just going to start winding these in. So I'm going to wind this down towards the donut and in towards our little bit of wire weaving, like so. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. So again, just because we bent them out of the way, just take a look at them, straighten them out if you need to, and make sure they are around about the same length. So I'm happy with those. And again, just turning these with your round nose pliers in towards here, and again with this one, just grabbing it right at the very tip and turning in towards. Okay, now what you need to do is just push these against the pendant. So what I did was I used my pliers, so I just used my pliers just to push those loops kind of onto, so they're actually sitting onto the pendant, and it kind of just brings them together a little bit. So again with this side, just pushing them down and pushing them down, and it gives it kind of a more finished look than them kind of little loops just hanging out there that need to be kind of set in place. Okay, so just make sure, take a little bit more time than I'm doing at the moment, but there we go. Now we've attached to our donut, and we can start adding the rest of our details. So I'm going to pop on one of my beads. So I've got these cute little Buddha head beads, and then I'm going to make an angle just so that I know where I'm wrapping to, because I want a section to wrap to. So I'm just going to hold everything in place. I know that this is around about 3mm is the width of my pliers, but just go with however much you want. You don't want it too big, you just want that little section there, and I'm going to tip that towards me. Okay, so now I've got this section, I can take another piece of my 0.4 wire, so I'm just going to take about 30cm, 40cm or so, just so that mainly some of that is kind of just so you've got enough to hold on to it. And I'm going to start wrapping onto this wire. Now I don't need to wrap right down to this end just yet, because it's nice and smooth and straight, it will slide down. So I'm just going to pop my tail underneath and start wrapping. So 2, 3, 4 wraps and then push together. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, push together. Don't be tempted to just wrap, 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 wrap and then push together. Just do a few at a time, because otherwise you will end up with it not looking smooth. You'll end up with gaps in it, and some will be more looped than others. So just a few and then push down. And you just want to get kind of about 1.5 inches or so. But like I say, don't go crazy and do too many at once. Just keep doing it and pushing it down, and working your way to the end. Well, not right to the end, but you want kind of 1.5 inches. So I will just continue doing that, which won't take very long at all. You can see it's kind of built up that inch already. So let's just get this last little section done. Depending on how big you want your bail, of course. If you want a bigger bail, if you've got kind of something larger to pass through it, like a seed bead chain or something like that, or larger beads that you might want to pass through it, just and go with whatever size you want your bail to be. But I think this is kind of okay for what I need it to be. So I've got about 1.5 inches on there now. So then I can cut this wire off, so I can cut it off nice and close, using the flush side of our flush cutters. So the flush side, in case you've not heard me say before, is a side that's flat. So we want the side that's flat closest to our work. So not this side here, we want the side that's flat closest to our work. Then you're going to get a nicer finish on that cut. Okay, so then just to make sure you haven't got any ends free there. And then what you can do is you can push this down to where we made that little angle there. Now what I tend to do is I tend to just use my fingers to make bails. So I would just use my fingers and create that loop like so. Okay, just using the strength from your fingers. Now what you want to do now is create some really nice neat wraps. So neat wraps around this little stem that we made. Remember that little 3mm gap that we left there? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this with my pliers. So I'm going to hold this with my pliers so that it retains that shape and keeps that shape really, really nice for me. I'll just let that focus. There we go. So I'm holding with my pliers, and then I'm just going to take the tail of this wire, try not to go too fast, just go nice and slowly, and start winding this down that little stem, that little post that we left. Okay, because I'm using a bead that we want to be facing the right way, I'm going to get my bead facing the right way, so this direction, and I'm just going to kind of nip in my wraps just to kind of tighten it up a little bit. It's still got a little bit of movement, so I'm just going to bring that around that a little bit further, and if I just squeeze and tighten up those wraps up to that bead, that's going to stop this bead from spinning. Now this bead can't spin anymore. So now I can snip this off nice and close again, making sure the flat side of my pliers are closest to my work, like so. And now I can squeeze that in, and that is this part of the pendant done. Now you could just wear this as it is. You could create just a small loop on the top of there and make this into an earring possibly if you wanted to, but that's kind of the basic design for the top part. Now I'm going to move on to the tassel. I'm going to add this first part of the tassel here, and then we'll go through with the Knotty Do It All board of how to create the tassel. But there are lots and lots and lots of different ways to create tassels, and it's basically wrapping around something, having something to wrap around with to create many layers for your tassel. So just to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a length of cord. So this is my 0.9mm cord, and I'm going to take probably around about 30 centimeters, and I'm just going to find my scissors. There they are. So cut it off. So I've got this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass through my donuts, and because you could just do it with one strand, but I thought that it looked a bit sort of insignificant, just that one strand. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that midway point, and I'm going to pass through again with the cord, like so, and then again with the opposite side, so through the back. So basically you're wrapping around it, so you've got 3 wraps around the bottom, and it just made it a little bit more substantial, and it flowed better with the width of this wrap here at the top. Now just to finish that off, all I need to do is tie a knot. So I'm just going to tie a basic overhand knot, so like so, and then it's a matter of getting this nice and tight against the pendant. So don't worry if it slips to one side, because that's not going to matter for the moment, and just kind of making that into a really nice tight double knot. Okay, so making sure it's tight against the donut, and then tighten it up like so. Okay, so that's really tightly fastened around there. Now this is the part that's going to actually attach your tassel to your pendant. So this part is done. Now I'm going to move on to making the actual tassel part, which is actually really simple and easy, and I'm just going to move these out of the way, get my board, and we'll be ready to start from there. So I've got my board set up and ready. I'm going to make the length of this tassel is going to be 8 inches, but it's actually going to be 4 inches by the time we finish, because we're going to kind of fold this in half. So yeah, so I've got 2 pegs in my Knotty Do It All, which are 8 inches apart, and then I've got a little crocodile clip which is part of the Knotty Do It All over here, which is just going to hold my thread. So once I've got this ready, this is set up, I've got my pendant here with my cord attached. The other thing I'm going to have ready to help me out is some glue. So I'm going to use some GS hypo-cement. The other things that I'm going to need ready for when I'm knotting to fasten this all together, I use a couple of hair clips just so I can hold everything together. It just makes life easier. The other thing that you could use is like a little plastic bag or something, just to pop, like this kind of thing, just to pop the tassel in, just so the bits or the ends are out of the way while she's fastening it. But I tend to go with using my kind of long clips, or you could even use kind of your Kirby grip sort of thing, just to kind of move everything out of the way, and that's just to lend you a hand, that's all. So we're going to start off by, we're going to leave a longer tail just at one end. So, and that's going to go into the crocodile clip. So I've probably got about 6 inches left on the end there. And then all I'm going to do is, I'm just going to pop this a bit further down there. All I'm going to do is wrap around my pegs. So it is literally a case of wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. So this might be a little bit boring just for a second to watch. So I'm just making sure, I find it's nicer to try and keep them nice and even, but you can overlap these, it's not going to really matter that much. Now when I make this tassel, it is going to look crazy, kind of all over the place. Now the trick to getting it nice and smooth is actually just kind of wetting the tassel, so giving it a nice soak in some water and then letting it hang. There is a very quick way of kind of doing that as well, which if you have an old pair of hair straighteners for this type of cord, it does melt it, so it has to be a very quick thing, but an old pair of hair straighteners will straighten them out. But it's one of those things, a bit like when you're doing your hair, you don't leave the hair straighteners still on it at all, it's just a really quick swish down of them. But I would recommend the water method if you just let the cord soak just for a few seconds and then just hang it, and it will straighten out beautifully at the end. So I'm happy with how many sort of runs I've got there, and I'm just going to pop that other end of the cord into there and snip that, and just leave a length at that end as well, just so you know where your start and finish is. So now this is the kind of tricky bit, because we've got the weight of the pendant is going to try and pull this down. So this is why I have my glue ready, so that I'm able just to pop a dot of glue on and just let that set just for a few seconds before I actually tie this. So I'm going to pop my pendant to the opposite side away from me, and I'm just going to tie it around. So I'm going to go with that kind of 4-inch mark, and I'm going to tie this around. Now you'll see if I let go of this, it's just going to loosen up because of the weight of the pendant. So it's kind of one of those tricky things to get to stay. So let's just get that in the middle there. Okay, it will move around on your pendant in any case, so don't worry too much about it. So you might want to do it so it's kind of this way around, but it's entirely up to you. All the cords are just going to be across anyway. But what I want to do is, once I've got that kind of one knot in, I'm just going to pop a daub of glue just on there. I know it's not fastened yet, so that's why I'm kind of still holding on to it, like so. This is always the nightmare, getting the pin back in the top of these. There we go. So now this has got a little bit of glue on it, it'll be starting to go a little bit tacky, and then I can fasten my other knot and pull this down really quickly onto it. So I want my knots to stay as tight as possible at this point. So, and really tight, so I've got double knot on the inside of there. Okay, so we're all in place and ready to detach from the board. Okay, so nice and tight. You could let that dry for a few minutes if you wanted to, but it's not a necessity. So now I'm going to let this go from the board, and I'm just going to pull this off the pins. Like I say, it's going to look a little bit crazy, but don't worry about it. Okay, so now we want to pull this all down together. We're going to leave those all in loops for the moment. We want our knot to be in the middle and underneath, and we want to pull this all together like so. So just pulling this all together and just making sure that we've got a nice neat look at the top here. Okay, so at this point, this is where my little clippies come in, because I'll pop one around about here, and then I'll pop one at the bottom there. Now if the ends don't want to come in, just make sure you've kind of grabbed everything together. Okay, like I say, it's still going to look a little bit crazy, but don't worry about it. So then I'm going to take another length of cord, probably about another 30 centimetres, and snip that off. Now I want to be working, so this is my left side, and I'm going to just make a loop. So just with the end of my cord, I've got this loop here, so that is going to sit sort of up against my donut and down the front of the pendant. Okay, now with the longer side, I'm going to be wrapping with this longer side, and this piece I want to kind of lay it down with the rest here. So it is tricky to probably come across on the camera very well, but I want to kind of hold that loop up there and then I've got this longer one here, and I'm going to start wrapping around. So I'm just holding everything together up at the top. I know you can't see it, but trust me, it's all like so. And then I'm going to bring my piece across, and I'm going to start winding up towards myself. So I'm winding over this little bit and that loop at the top. Now once I've got a couple in, I can just give it a bit of a pull and pull them in a little bit tighter. Okay, so now I can show you that loop there at the top, and I can pull this in, and this is my bottom cord here. And then it's just a matter of wrapping this a few times up towards the actual donut part. Okay, so nice and tight, pulling this in. Oh, there we go. So you can see I'm just wrapping them so that they're really nice and neat and together, and making sure that they're not overlapping anywhere. Now I've got kind of 5 or 6 wraps in now. I'm kind of happy with the width of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass my cord through that loop there, this loop at the top here. So I'm going to pass my cord down through this loop, like so, and then I'm going to pull this cord up, this cord here. Okay, so passing that through the loop, so you can see my cord's gone through this loop here, and then I'm just going to pull this loop, and I'm just going to do it quite gently at first. Then once it becomes level with the actual wraps around, I'm going to give that a really good pull through, and I'm going to pull both of them like so, and that is my knot done. Now that is absolutely super secure. Now what we can do is we can snip this off with a with your scissors, and then pop our if you've got a bead zapper or something like that, or a naked flame, that you can just kind of seal the end of this. Now this one at the bottom, this can kind of just blend in with the rest of it. Okay, so just for now, because I haven't got a naked flame with me at the moment, so I'm just going to cut this off, and what I do is I cut this off, and you can just see that there, so I'll be able to kind of get that to kind of come out a little bit and finish that off with a flame in a few minutes. But that is really super secure. And you could even pop a little bit of little tiny dot of glue on there too, and you can see how nice the top part of your tassel looks, and it really is that simple. Now for the rest of this, all you're going to do is find all the ends and snip through them. So just snipping through all of these ends like so. Don't worry if you snip any bits off, because once it's straight, and I wouldn't do it yet, I would only do this when it's straight. I don't know whether that's all the loops there. Like I say, it's going to look crazy, but once you've made sure you've snipped off all the loops, you can cut off any of your kind of longer ones off, and snip up through all those loops. Just wet this. I mean, you may not want to wet your bare copper, because, well, I've used bare copper, whatever wire you're using. You may just want to wet it from kind of here down, and then just literally let it hang, and it will straighten out. And then once it's straightened out, you can finish it off by just giving it a nice little trim, and you will end up with a nice straight one like this. So that is how we go ahead and finish our pendant, like so. So you can see there, nice and straight, very, very easy to create this, and just make sure you give it a real pull. You can see there, even on this one, I've not been able to find my my zapper or my little lighter to finish that off, but it's even now, it's still super secure, and I will finish that off in a little while once I find it. But there you go, all done, all finished. Thank you very, very much for watching, and please pop me a like below if you've enjoyed this video, if you've learned something from it, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, today's date is the 28th of June 2020. I'm almost at 500 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and I intend to do a giveaway. When I get to that 500, I'm going to give away at least 10 pieces of jewellery that I've made for my YouTube channel so far. So if the date is around now and I haven't got to 500 subscribers, please make sure you do subscribe, and then pop over to my Facebook page, give that a like, and then hopefully you might be in with a chance of winning on my Facebook page some of my jewellery. So take care, and I will see you again very, very soon. Thank you.